On the 17th of June, 2017, in the early hours of the morning, 7 sailors lost their lives in a coordinated strike against a U.S. Navy destroyer. A huge cover-up ensued, and false information was put out by the U.S. Navy. We've uncovered that here at the channel. This coming week, the commander of this ship, who was asleep at the time, is going to stand before an Article 32 hearing. This is where they're going to determine if there is enough evidence to proceed with a court-martial. It's now been reported that a junior officer has been flipped and is now going to testify against this man in order to maintain the cover story the U.S. Navy is putting out. In today's video, I'm going to show some newer information that's going to even further call into question the report the Navy put out and the information you're being led to believe is true. Now, thankfully, I have been able to get another laptop. Mine died a couple months ago. This one is a little bit more high speed, and it has a touch screen, and it allows me to do things moving the screen around with zoom level to illustrate concepts better. Now, where we left off yesterday, we of course here have the time. Explain real quick. 0130 in the morning correlates to 1630 GMT. 1630 of course being military time. Add 9 hours to get the time in Japan. GMT is over in Europe. So, what we established yesterday is that this particular track was established using an AIS system that is a Class B transponder. How do we know this? Well, as I play this forward, and this is available online, you can look for yourself. I've got set playing forward. You can see the last number, always being a 2 or a 7, shows clearly that this is reporting every 5 seconds. Now, this is zoomed out. I haven't done this, the video itself has. But it's important to understand something here as we stop it right here. This is the time of the accident directly after 16:32:07. Now, at this zoom level, I've gone to Google Maps, and there's this little spit of an island out here that I went to Google Maps, I measured. It's about 1/3 of a mile long. At this level, it's about the size of my cursor. So I can go back over here, and I can now show you distances using this to be 1/3 of a mile. Why is that important? Well, what we're going to show is that this ACX, this alleged ACX crystal, this fake track, the movements this thing makes, there is no way on God's green earth a ship 733 feet long, 29,000 tons, could make the moves, cover the distances at this alleged speed that it's at right here. It just wouldn't be possible. Now, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to maintain the zoom level, and I'm going to play this forward for you. Okay, now remember, we're moving at a 1/4 speed here, so this is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, now we're all familiar with this big jump here. And even if you would attribute this to just a computer hiccup or reporting hiccup, we do have a distance covered. Now I'll stop it there. Now remember, my cursor is 1/3 of a mile long. So it covered 1, 2, there's 1 mile, 1, 2, 3 miles, 1, I'm going to guesstimate here, 2, 4 miles, at least 5 miles. Okay, 5 miles, allegedly moving 14 knots with a turn. Now, as we scroll up here, It covered 5 miles in 5 minutes. That would be 60 knots. From here to here is a very minimum of 5 miles. There's no freaking way. That's not even close. Even if my estimations were off by 100%, that would still make it 30 knots. There's no way this ship could have been here at 1:30 local time and here at 1:38 local time. I don't care what kind of engine was in it. I don't care what the hell is going on. This is a lie. This is an absolute fictitious. This is not the ACX crystal. Now, what does this have to do with the Navy report? Well, remember, the Navy report uses the positioning of the ACX crystal that they got from Vessel Finder. That's critical. That's absolutely critical to know. And if we go forward, we can show you something else too at this zoom level. This is where the ship allegedly does this U-turn. Let me see if I can get up to the point here. Sorry about this. Okay, this is where it approaches the WIKI Bridge, which is another issue in itself, that a ship out there would be totally stopped and then just turn off its AIS as a ship passes is ridiculous. So remember, this ship is only moving allegedly 12.5 knots. But I've maintained the zoom level, shown you the island, and shown you how big this cursor is in relation to it. And you can go out and you can go to Google Maps and you can pull off this entire map section and look at this, and it'll show you the same thing. There's no way this giant lumbering mess of a cargo ship did that first move to begin with. This next one is beyond the pale. Let me scroll over here. Okay. This is 1701. This is roughly 2 o'clock. This is when it starts to make its turn. To turn back around, being the nice guys that they are. Now remember, 1701, 1702, roughly we're at here. This thing allegedly, okay, here it starts its turn. And I gave it an extra minute just to show you how ridiculous this is. Remember, 733 feet long. 29,000 tons. Wait for it to come about completely. Supposedly only moving 8 knots in that turn. What looks to be about a 2-mile turn. We'll go ahead and pause it there just to give it plenty of time. How long did it take? 10 minutes? Baloney. There's no way it would do a full 180-degree turn at 8 knots in 10 minutes. Remember, 8 knots is 8 miles an hour. Roughly 10 miles an hour. And this thing covered, based on distances here in this turn, what looks to be about 2 miles. There's no way. There's absolutely no possible way this giant cargo vessel did this turn. Now, here's the nail in the coffin. The absolute nail in the coffin. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to speed this up. Well, I'll just go ahead and click up to it instead of doing that. All right. It gets back here to the location, right? Now, I want to show you something. As soon as it starts playing forward. There we go. Play. All right. See how it's still in the 5-second paradigm? The 2-7. Now look, it's not moving. It's just stopped right there, right? Now I know it's lagging for a minute. but this is the absolute nail in the coffin. It changes. It changes to a 10-second paradigm. Still setting motionless. They've switched the transponders. And now it's down to 2.9 knots and reporting in what would be a Class A fashion. So my assertion is this. This entire, I'm going to zoom back out now. This entire track was cooked up all the way up into this point. The actual location and track and speed of the ACX crystal was an unknown factor, an unknown quantity, all the way up into this point right here. This now more than likely is an accurate track of the ACX crystal. Now, here is what has cemented this in my mind. When you look at the timing of this, here's where the accident took place. This was supposedly 1:30 in the morning. When you look at the wiki for AIS and you go to accident investigation, sorry about that, VDR data are not maintained due to the limited 12 hours of storage by IMO requirement. What does that mean? What that means is that this ship is only going to have 12 hours max of data aboard. So, if this is 3 o'clock in the morning here, which we've established, from this point on till 3 o'clock in the afternoon is what it's going to record. Anything prior to this, it's not going to have. You following me? It overwrites every 12 hours. Now, if we go forward, what we see is that this turn allegedly was autopilot to run it up through this channel here on its way to Tokyo. But where does it actually go? It goes all the way over here. And then it loiters out here for hours and hours. Savi.com covered this. What happened is this thing stayed out there, not under command, for 4 or 5 hours. What were they doing? Nobody knows. My guess is they were just mark time marching, running out their clock on their AIS so that when they got into Tokyo, this would be the only information, this fake signal, that anyone would have. Because it would have already run out. And they talk about this here. If you go all the way down to the bottom, ACX crystal are typical in comparison to the average ship cruising underway using engine at sea along a shipping lane. It will be informative to learn what the investigators discover about what was happening during this 11-hour window. Talking about 1:30 to 3 o'clock. I think I know exactly what's happened. They had to run out the VDR data on the ship so that no one could actually see where that ship actually had been. So that the only information they did have was this fake. So that the story would stick. They didn't think anybody was going to look into it. And they're right, nobody did. It's not plausible that this thing would be reporting in 5-second intervals. It's not plausible that in this section here, it could move 5 miles in 6 minutes. This turn is not plausible. This change back here from the 5-second to the 10-second is not plausible. And it's loitering inexplicably for 4 hours all the way out here outside this island just sitting there doing nothing is also inexplicable. So clearly we have nothing but suspicious behavior out of this cargo vessel. If this doesn't introduce reasonable doubt in your mind, if this doesn't make you ask the question, what the hell was really going on? I don't know what will. They've even reported this as a threat. This was an article by blackhat.com talking about this exact issue. GPS spoofing came out in 2009, and I find it odd that the ships they use in the report are an Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer, 2 Ticonderoga missile cruisers, and a Spruance-class destroyer. And they go through this in detail. I'll put this down in the description where you can read this report for yourself, where they talk about how AIS can be hijacked, how false transponder signals can be used. And in the Navy's report, just to end this out, I want to show you a couple of other things that stand out in the report to show that this isn't accurate in the least. Now remember, the story is the captain went to sleep at 11 o'clock and left orders that if they came near any ships, under certain circumstances, he was to be, woken up. All right? Now, when you look at 0058, this is, let's see if I can find this right. All right, let's start back here at 2350. The commanding officer left the bridge at 2300. Okay, now 50 minutes later, overtook a contact and no report made to the CO. Okay. Midnight. No report, vicinity of 4 commercial vessels. 15 minutes later, 2 commercial vessels. No report made. 0034. 4 vessels passed down the port side with CPA 1500 yards. The commanding officer was informed. Was informed. No course and speed were made. Point of this, when you go down through here and you look at all of these different events between 11 and 1:30, was the standing order that, I guess maybe somebody in the Navy is going to have to educate me on this. Did they need to wake him up every 5 minutes? Because remember, the course was taking them through a shipping lane. That wasn't something that would have been lost on the captain. So, of all these times they report no report made to the captain, no report made to the captain, and the one where they said they did, we're only talking about a 2.5 hour time period here. Were they supposed to be waking this guy up every 5 minutes? Every 10 minutes? And if he knew this, what would have been the point of him going to bed to begin with if he left orders to be woken up every 5 minutes every time they came within, visual of a ship? And they did wake him up once at 0034 hours. 4 vessels passed down the port side with CPA 15 yards. Commanding officer was informed. And when you look at where they say the Fitzgerald was in relation to these other ships, it uses the false location of the Crystal that we've shown clearly is false. Because the only real accurate one, more than likely, is an hour and 20 minutes after the collision. And then this report of them not supporting the officer of the deck, not doing their job to let him know about what was going on. We've covered this too. Watchstander responsible for the immediate support of the officer of the deck, JOOD, reported sighting Crystal visually. And in the report they say nobody did watchstanding duties on the starboard side. The only way you would have seen Crystal is if Crystal was on the starboard side. Unless, of course, the Crystal was actually on the port side, because the Crystal was not where they said they were. That whole track being completely wrong, the location of the Fitzgerald being wrong. Either way, this is all one giant cooked-up clusterfuck mess. None of it based in truth. And they're trying to ruin an officer's career over this. I mean, reasonable doubt? Really? I mean, this isn't civil court. The junior officer of the deck cited Crystal again and made the recommendation to slow. And then after, and I know this video has gone 20 minutes, but I think it's important that everybody understand this. They say two things out of their mouth at the same time. First, they say that the officer of the deck got no information necessary to help him make the proper decision when he did. They say that they didn't wake up the commander when they were supposed to, when they did. They didn't wake him up every 5 minutes, but they woke him up once between 11 o'clock and 1:30 to let him know that they were in traffic, and he would have known they were going to be in traffic anyway. He knew the course of his vessel. They said that nobody did watchstanding duties off one side when they show clearly they did. It's beyond the pale how poorly they did the cover-up here. And I think people need to start asking questions. They really do. They need to start standing up and saying, hey, we're not going to take this crap story. We're not going to allow these officers to be railroaded. So, anyway, I'll get all these links down in the description, and you can look through this. If you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, lots of great contributors out there that have a great deal of information that could also enlighten you as to naval procedures and why all of this is just a bunch of nonsense. So, anyway, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe.